something is happening in the used car market that nobody in the mainstream media is talking about. Mechanics, the people who actually understand how cars work, the people who spend their lives underneath vehicles diagnosing problems that the average person cannot even pronounce, they are quietly doing something very specific. They are hunting down cars built before 2008. Not because they are cheap, not because they are classics, not because they look good. They are doing it because they know something that the dealerships and the manufacturers do not want you to know. They know about the kill switch, and once you understand what that kill switch is, you will never look at a modern car the same way again. Let me take you back to 2007. That was the last year you could buy a new car without a government-mandated event data recorder installed as a permanent, non-removable part of the vehicle. Starting in 2008, the federal government required all new passenger vehicles to come equipped with what is officially called an EDR, an event data recorder. They sold it to the public as a safety feature, a black box like the ones in airplanes that records what happens in the moments before a crash. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable, but the mechanics who have been pulling these systems apart for the last 15 years know that the EDR was just the beginning. It was the foundation on which an entire architecture of control was built. One quiet regulation at a time, one software update at a time, until the car you think you own became something you merely have permission to operate. Here is what nobody tells you when you're sitting in that dealership signing paperwork. A modern car, anything built in the last 10 to 12 years, is not primarily a mechanical device. It is a computer on wheels. The average vehicle rolling off an assembly line today contains between 50 and 150 individual electronic control units. Those are separate computers, each one running its own software, all networked together through a system called the CAN bus. The engine has a computer, the transmission has a computer, the brakes have a computer, the steering has a computer, the seats have a computer, the mirrors have a computer, and every single one of those computers can be updated, monitored, restricted, or disabled remotely by the manufacturer. You paid $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for that vehicle, but the software that makes it run belongs to someone else. And in the fine print of your purchase agreement, buried in language that no normal person reads, you gave them permission to do with it whatever they want. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not speculation. This is documented. In 2020, a major American automaker pushed a mandatory over-the-air software update that remotely limited the top speed of certain fleet vehicles in specific geographic zones. The owners of those vehicles did not ask for that. The owners of those vehicles did not consent to that in any meaningful sense. It simply happened overnight while the cars sat in their driveways. In 2022, another manufacturer announced that certain performance features that were physically built into the car and working perfectly, would now require a monthly subscription to access. You want your heated seats to work in January? That will be $18 a month. The hardware is in your car. You paid for it, but access to it has been locked behind a paywall. And the software they use to lock it is the same software they could use to lock anything else, including the engine itself. Mechanics understand this in a way that most car buyers do not, because mechanics are the ones who show up when the system fails. They are the ones who plug in the diagnostic computer and find out that the manufacturer has flagged the vehicle for a recall, but has not told the owner, and has quietly reduced the engine power output through a software parameter to protect themselves from liability. They are the ones who discover that a car with 60,000 miles and a perfectly functional engine will not start because a sensor sent a code to the ECU, and the ECU, following its programming, decided that the vehicle should not operate until a dealer clears the fault. Not a local shop, a dealer, with their proprietary software that you have to pay for. This is not a breakdown. This is a designed choke point. This is leverage. A pre-2008 vehicle does not have this problem. A pre-2008 vehicle is fundamentally different in architecture. It is still primarily a mechanical device with electronic assistance, not an electronic device with mechanical components. Yes, it has computers. Yes, it has sensors. But those systems are simpler, more transparent, and critically, they are not networked to the outside world. There is no cellular modem in a 2003 truck. There is no over-the-air update pathway in a 2005 SUV. When you turn the key in a 1999 pickup, that truck does not check in with a server in Detroit before deciding whether you're allowed to drive today. It just runs, because it belongs to you, completely and without condition. The mechanics who are buying these vehicles are not doing it out of nostalgia. They are making a calculated decision based on what they see every single week in their shops. They are watching late-model vehicles come in with problems that cannot be fixed with tools, problems that require a software license, problems that require a subscription to a dealer diagnostic portal, problems that independent mechanics, the small shops that built this country, are increasingly being locked out of solving. Right to repair is a concept that is currently being fought over in courts and in legislatures across the country, and the automotive industry is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to make sure that the independent mechanic loses. They want to own the diagnostic pathway. They want to own the repair pathway. They want to make sure that when your car breaks down, the only person legally and practically capable of fixing it is someone on their payroll, at their price, on their schedule. A pre-2008 vehicle sits completely outside that ecosystem. The OBD2 port on a car from that era speaks a language that is fully documented and fully open. Any mechanic with a $50 scanner can read every fault code, clear every fault code, and understand exactly what is happening inside the engine. The fuel injection maps are accessible. The timing parameters are adjustable. The transmission shift points can be modified. The car responds to the person holding the wrench, not to a terms of service agreement. That is why when a good mechanic is shopping for a personal vehicle, something they will own and maintain for the next 20 years, they are not walking into a dealership. They are walking into someone's driveway to look at a 2004 F-150 with 180,000 miles on it. Because they know that those miles mean almost nothing if the engine and transmission are fundamentally sound, and they know they have the skills to keep it fundamentally sound indefinitely without asking anyone's permission. Let us talk about specific vehicles, because this matters. The mechanics doing this are not buying just any pre-2008 car. They are buying strategically. The Toyota Land Cruiser and the 4Runner from that era are at the top of almost every serious mechanic's list. The engines in those vehicles, particularly the 1GR-FE V6 and the older 3FE inline 6, are legendary for their tolerance margins. They were engineered with a level of physical robustness that assumed the vehicle would be operated in conditions where dealerships and software updates do not exist. You can rebuild those engines on a dirt floor in a third world country with basic hand tools and parts sourced locally. That is not an accident. That is intentional engineering philosophy, and it is a philosophy that Toyota has largely abandoned in its newer platforms in favor of complexity and connectivity. The Ford Super Duty trucks from the late 1990s and early 2000s, specifically the 7.3-litre Power Stroke diesel, represent another category that mechanics treat almost like a religion. That engine was designed by Navistar. It has a mechanical injection system that does not depend on high-pressure common rail electronics. It starts in extreme cold without a block heater. It will run on fuel that a modern diesel engine would reject. Mechanics who own them report routinely crossing 500,000 miles on the original block. And when something does go wrong, every single component of that engine is available from multiple suppliers, both OEM and aftermarket, at prices that have not been artificially inflated by software-controlled parts ordering systems. The Jeep Cherokee XJ is another one that comes up constantly in these conversations. Produced from 1984 through 2001, it was one of the last mass-market American vehicles built with a fully mechanical transfer case and a straight axle front suspension that a person can actually work on without a degree in software engineering. The 4.0-litre inline 6 in that truck has a following that borders on obsessive, because mechanics know that engine has a failure mode of basically never if you keep fresh oil in it. There are XJs with 300,000 miles being daily driven today, not because of advanced technology, because of basic, honest engineering that was designed to be repaired rather than replaced. The Honda Accord and Civic from the late 1990s and early 2000s occupy a different but equally important place on this list. These are not trucks. They are not heavy-duty work vehicles, but they represent something important. They prove that the philosophy of simple, robust repairable engineering is not limited to one segment. A late 1990s Honda Accord with a manual transmission is one of the most mechanically transparent vehicles ever mass-produced. The timing belt interval is well documented. The valve adjustment procedure is straightforward. The fuel system is conventional. Every bolt is accessible. Every system is logical. A competent home mechanic can perform nearly every maintenance item on that car with basic tools in an afternoon. A modern Honda costs twice as much, requires specialized software for basic diagnostics, and has systems that actively resist owner maintenance. The philosophy changed. The old cars are the evidence. Now here is the part that should make you angry, because it is designed to. The manufacturers are aware that people are waking up to this. They are aware that the narrative around pre-OBD complexity and pre-connectivity ownership is spreading, particularly among people who actually work on cars for a living, and their response has been interesting. They have begun framing software restrictions as safety features. They have begun framing remote monitoring as consumer protection. They have pushed legislation in multiple states that would make certain modifications to vehicle software illegal, not because those modifications are dangerous, but because they represent a consumer escaping the control ecosystem. The argument is always safety. The reality is always money. When a manufacturer can charge you a subscription for features your car already has, every feature becomes potential subscription revenue. And the only thing standing between you and a world where you pay monthly to use your own vehicle is the decision you make at the point of purchase. Mechanics do not wait for legislation to protect them. Mechanics vote with their wallets and with their time. They buy the 2003, they source the parts from the 3 suppliers who still stock them. They do the work themselves on a Saturday morning in the driveway, and they drive a vehicle that no software update can reach, no subscription model can monetize, and no manufacturer can remotely disable. There is a freedom in that which people who have only ever owned modern vehicles genuinely cannot understand until they experience it. The freedom of a machine that is entirely yours, that answers only to your foot on the accelerator and your hands on the wheel. That will start in a snowstorm at -20 degrees without asking a server for permission. We are at a turning point in the history of the automobile. The connected car, the software-defined vehicle, the over-the-air update, the subscription feature model, these are not improvements in any meaningful sense for the person who owns the car. They are improvements for the manufacturer. They are tools of ongoing revenue extraction from a customer who believed they completed a transaction when they signed the purchase agreement. The mechanics buying pre-2008 cars understand this, not as a philosophical position, but as a practical reality they encounter every single week. They are not Luddites. Most of them use the most sophisticated diagnostic equipment available. They embrace technology that serves the owner. They reject technology that serves the manufacturer at the owner's expense. The kill switch is real. It is not a single physical switch. It is an architecture. It is a system of software dependencies, remote access pathways, and proprietary data ecosystems that ensure your vehicle is never fully yours. It was introduced gradually, one regulation at a time, one model year at a time, until it became the default. And the people who found it, the people who understood what they were looking at, made a choice. They went back, not out of fear, not out of ignorance, out of an understanding that ownership is not a feeling. Ownership is control, and if you do not control the software, you do not own the machine. Buy the old truck, learn to work on it, find a mechanic who still speaks that language. Because the most reliable vehicle you will ever own is one that cannot be updated, cannot be monitored, cannot be throttled, and cannot be turned off by someone sitting at a keyboard 1,000 miles away. The best technology is the kind that belongs to you, completely, without exception, and without a monthly fee.